During a family vacation, my husband's parents demanded I sit alone at a different table. No one uttered a word to me throughout the entire trip. When I inquired with my husband, he simply shrugged. "It's just how they are." I grinned and responded, "Great, I have my own plans too." The following morning, they discovered what I had done, and chaos ensued. As I sat alone at a different table during our family vacation, the laughter and chatter of my husband's family echoed around me, a stark reminder of my isolation. The sun shone brightly, casting a warm glow on the festive gathering, but I felt a chill creeping in. My husband, Mark, was animatedly sharing stories of his parents and siblings, their faces lit up with joy, while I was left in the shadows, a silent observer. Confusion swirled within me. How had it come to this? I had always tried to fit in, to be the supportive daughter-in-law, but it seemed my efforts were in vain. The tension in the air was palpable, and I could feel the weight of unspoken words pressing down on me. I glanced at Mark, hoping for a sign of solidarity, but he simply shrugged when I asked why I was being treated this way. "It's just how they are," he said, dismissing my concerns with a wave of his hand. That moment crystallized my feelings of frustration and helplessness. As I watched my husband laugh with his family, I realized I had to take matters into my own hands. I could no longer remain a passive participant in my own life. It was time to reclaim my voice and assert my place in this family. Before this vacation, I had always prided myself on being a loving and understanding partner. My name is Sarah, and I'm a firm believer in the importance of family. I grew up in a close-knit household, where open communication was valued, and I carried those principles into my marriage with Mark. He was kind, hardworking, and had a great sense of humor, which initially drew me to him. We met 5 years ago, and our relationship blossomed quickly. However, as time passed, I began to notice the subtle cracks in our family dynamics. Mark's parents, particularly his mother, had a way of asserting their dominance that often left me feeling sidelined. They were traditional and held strong opinions about family roles, which clashed with my more modern views. I had always tried to be accommodating, believing that if I just showed them my good intentions, they would eventually accept me. But each family gathering seemed to reinforce my outsider status. During our last holiday dinner, I had made a simple suggestion about how to arrange the seating, only to be met with disapproving glances and dismissive comments. "That's not how we do things," his mother had said, her tone sharp. I brushed it off, convincing myself that it was just a misunderstanding. But deep down, I felt the tension building, a sense of unease that I couldn't shake. As we prepared for this vacation, I hoped for a fresh start, a chance to bond with Mark's family. Instead, I found myself facing the same old patterns, feeling more like an intruder than a member of the family. The emotional stakes were high, and I was beginning to realize that my efforts to fit in might not be enough to change the dynamics at play. If you've ever felt sidelined by family, you're not alone. Family dynamics can be incredibly complex, and navigating them can feel like walking a tightrope. Subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more stories of family drama and resilience, where we explore the challenges and triumphs of relationships tested to their limits. Join our community and share your experiences. Together, we can find strength in our stories. Leading up to this vacation, I had experienced several incidents that hinted at the growing rift between me and Mark's family. At last year's Thanksgiving dinner, I had offered to help in the kitchen, eager to bond with my mother-in-law. Instead of gratitude, I was met with a curt, "I've got it under control." I felt dismissed, my intentions misunderstood. I tried to laugh it off, convincing myself that she was just protective of her traditions. Then there was the Christmas gathering, where I had prepared a dish I thought everyone would enjoy. When I presented it, Mark's sister raised an eyebrow and said, "That's an interesting choice." The laughter that followed felt like a direct jab at my efforts. I could see Mark's discomfort, but he didn't say anything. I brushed it off, telling myself that family banter was just part of the holiday spirit. Each incident chipped away at my confidence, yet I rationalized their behavior. "They're just old-fashioned," I thought. "They'll come around eventually." I wanted to believe that if I continued to show kindness and patience, they would eventually accept me. But with each gathering, I felt more like an outsider, a guest in a family that was supposed to be mine. As the vacation approached, I hoped for a change. I envisioned a scenario where we would all sit around the table, sharing stories and laughter, where I would finally feel included. But deep down, I sensed that the underlying issues were far from resolved. The tension was palpable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was walking into a minefield. When we arrived at the vacation spot, the atmosphere was festive. But I quickly realized that my hopes for a harmonious family experience were misplaced. The first night, as we gathered for dinner, I was directed to a separate table, a clear indication of my status within the family. I felt the familiar sting of exclusion wash over me, and I knew I had to confront the reality of my situation. The breaking point came the following evening during dinner. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the dining area, I sat at the table, feeling the weight of isolation pressing down on me. My husband's family was animated, sharing stories and laughter, while I was left to pick at my food, the silence around me deafening. When I finally mustered the courage to ask Mark why I was being treated this way, he shrugged, his expression indifferent. "It's just how they are," he said, as if that explained everything. My heart sank. I had hoped for understanding, for him to stand up for me, but instead, I felt abandoned. That's when I decided to take action. I grinned, masking my hurt with a facade of confidence. "Great, I have my own plans too," I replied, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. I felt a fire ignite within me, the determination to reclaim my voice. I could no longer allow myself to be sidelined. The chaos that would ensue from my actions was inevitable, but I was ready to face it head-on. Have you ever felt like your voice was silenced? It's a frustrating and isolating experience that many can relate to. Comment below with your experience. The confrontation that follows in this story might surprise you. Your stories matter, and sharing them can help others find their strength. Join the conversation, and let's support each other through these challenges. As I sat there, the laughter of my husband's family ringing in my ears, I began to process the situation more deeply. I reflected on past incidents, the subtle manipulations that had become all too familiar. Each moment of exclusion, each dismissive comment, replayed in my mind like a film on repeat. I realized that I had been accepting their behavior for far too long, rationalizing it as mere family quirks. Flashbacks flooded my thoughts, like the time Mark had chosen to spend the day with his family instead of attending my sister's wedding. "It's just one day," he had said, brushing off my disappointment. At the time, I had accepted it, convincing myself that family obligations were important. But now, I saw it differently. It was a pattern of prioritizing his family over our relationship, a dynamic I had overlooked in my desire to fit in. Suddenly, all the coincidences made sense. I recalled how his mother always seemed to create emergencies whenever Mark and I planned time alone, how she subtly undermined my authority with our children. I had been so focused on being the accommodating daughter-in-law that I had ignored the signs. The realization hit me like a wave. I was not just a victim of circumstance. I had allowed this to happen. This moment of clarity ignited a shift within me. I could no longer accept the status quo. I had to stand up for myself, to assert my place in this family. The determination that had sparked during dinner now burned brightly, fueling my resolve to confront the issues head-on. I was ready to reclaim my voice and demand the respect I deserved. In the days that followed, I sought solace in my support system. I reached out to my sister, who had always been my confidant. Over coffee, I finally voiced my concerns, sharing the painful experiences I had endured during family gatherings. "I feel like I'm constantly fighting for my place in Mark's family," I admitted, my voice trembling with emotion. To my relief, she listened intently, her expression one of understanding. "You deserve to be treated with respect, Sarah," she said firmly. "This isn't normal, and you shouldn't have to put up with it." Her validation was a balm to my wounded spirit, reinforcing my determination to take action. We talked about strategies for addressing the situation, and she encouraged me to have an open conversation with Mark. "He needs to understand how you feel," she urged. "You can't keep this bottled up." Her words resonated deeply, and I realized that I had been holding back, afraid of causing conflict. With her support, I felt empowered to voice my concerns to Mark. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to confront the issues that had been festering for too long. I wanted him to see the toll that his family's behavior was taking on our relationship. I needed him to understand that I was not just a passive participant in this dynamic. I was an active player who deserved a voice. As I prepared for the conversation, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. I knew that this was a pivotal moment, one that could change the course of our relationship. With my sister's encouragement echoing in my mind, I steeled myself for the challenge ahead. It was time to break the cycle of silence and assert my place in this family. The family dinner arrived, and the atmosphere was charged with tension. As we gathered around the table, I could feel the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. I took a deep breath, my heart racing as I prepared to confront the issues that had been simmering beneath the surface. Mark's family was animated, sharing stories and laughter, but I felt a sense of detachment. I knew I had to speak up to make my voice heard. As the conversation flowed, I waited for the right moment, my pulse quickening with each passing second. Finally, I cleared my throat, drawing the attention of the table. "Can we talk about something important?" I began, my voice steady despite the nerves churning in my stomach. The room fell silent, and I could feel the eyes of my in-laws on me, a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "I've been feeling increasingly sidelined during our family gatherings, and I think it's time we address it." Mark's mother immediately interjected, her tone defensive. "What do you mean? We've always welcomed you into our family." Her words dripped with condescension, and I could sense the manipulation lurking beneath the surface. "I appreciate that, but it often feels like I'm not truly part of the family," I replied, my voice firm. "I've tried to fit in, but I feel like my efforts are dismissed. I want to be included, not just tolerated." The tension in the room escalated, and I could see Mark's discomfort. He shifted in his seat, glancing between me and his family. "Mom, maybe we should listen to Sarah," he said hesitantly, his voice barely above a whisper. His mother's expression hardened. "After everything I've done for you, you're going to let her speak to me this way?" she cried, looking around for support. "Mark, are you going to let her talk to me like this?" For the first time, Mark didn't immediately jump to her defense. I could see the internal struggle on his face, and I pressed on, determined to stand my ground. "I'm not trying to disrespect anyone. I just want to be heard and valued as part of this family." The confrontation reached a boiling point, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I wouldn't be silenced anymore. I had come too far to back down now. The chaos that ensued was inevitable, but I was ready to face it head-on, knowing that my voice mattered. As the confrontation unfolded, deeper issues began to surface. Mark's family history was steeped in tradition and control, and I could see how it had shaped his behavior. His mother had always been the matriarch, wielding her influence with an iron fist. I had often wondered why Mark struggled to stand up to her, but now it was becoming clear. In the midst of the heated exchange, Mark finally spoke up, his voice trembling with emotion. "You don't understand what it was like for me growing up," he said, his eyes darting between me and his mother. "After Dad died, Mom told me I was the man of the house now. I was only 12, but I promised to always take care of her." His admission struck me like a lightning bolt. Suddenly, everything made sense. The way he had always prioritized his family's needs over mine, the guilt that seemed to bind him to his mother's expectations. I realized that he had been caught in a web of loyalty, torn between his love for me and his obligation to his family. As the conversation continued, I could see the cracks in his mother's facade. The controlling nature that had once seemed so unyielding began to waver as she faced the reality of her actions. "I just wanted what was best for you, Mark," she said, her voice softer now, tinged with vulnerability. I thought I was helping, but her words felt hollow. I knew that her intentions, however well-meaning, had created a toxic environment. The manipulation and control had stifled not only my voice but also Mark's ability to assert himself. It was a cycle that needed to be broken. In that moment, I understood that this confrontation was not just about me. It was about Mark reclaiming his own voice as well. We were both trapped in a dynamic that had to change. The realization that we were in this together filled me with hope. Perhaps this was the turning point we needed to redefine our relationship and establish healthier boundaries. After the confrontation, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I knew that addressing the issues with Mark's family was just the beginning. I needed to take concrete steps to reclaim my voice and assert my place in this family. The first step was to have a heart-to-heart conversation with Mark, one that would lay the groundwork for our future. One evening, after the dust had settled from the family dinner, I sat down with Mark. "We need to talk about what happened," I said gently, my heart racing. "I want to understand your perspective, but I also need you to understand mine." He nodded, his expression serious. "I know I haven't been supportive, and I'm sorry. I just didn't know how to handle it." We talked for hours, delving into the complexities of his family dynamics and the pressures he felt. I shared my feelings of isolation and frustration, and he listened, genuinely trying to grasp the weight of my experiences. It was a breakthrough moment, one that allowed us to connect on a deeper level. Together, we decided to plan a family meeting to address the issues openly. I wanted to create a space where everyone could voice their concerns and work toward a resolution. Mark agreed, but I could see the apprehension in his eyes. "What if they don't listen?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "We have to try," I replied, my determination unwavering. "We can't keep living like this. It's time to set boundaries and establish a healthier dynamic." As we prepared for the meeting, I felt a mix of anxiety and excitement. I knew that resistance from his family was likely, but I was ready to face it. I had spent too long feeling sidelined, and I was determined to take control of my narrative. The day of the family meeting arrived, and I felt a surge of adrenaline. I was ready to assert my voice and demand the respect I deserved. With Mark by my side, I felt empowered to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The family meeting was a turning point, but the immediate aftermath was fraught with tension. As we gathered in the living room, I could feel the weight of anticipation in the air. Mark and I sat together, ready to address the issues that had been simmering for far too long. I started the conversation outlining my feelings of exclusion and the impact it had on our relationship. To my surprise, Mark's family listened, albeit with skepticism. His mother's expression was a mix of defensiveness and confusion, while his siblings exchanged glances, unsure of how to react. When I finished speaking, there was a heavy silence. Mark's mother finally spoke, her voice shaky. "I didn't realize you felt that way," she said, her tone softer than before. "I thought I was just being a good mother." It was a small victory, but I could see the cracks in her facade. The conversation continued, and while there were moments of pushback, I felt a sense of empowerment. I was no longer the silent observer. I was actively participating in shaping our family dynamics. In the days that followed, I noticed a shift in our relationship. Mark began to stand up for me more, asserting his boundaries with his family. He started letting his mother's calls go to voicemail, a small but significant victory. I felt a sense of relief wash over me. I was no longer fighting this battle alone. However, the challenges were far from over. Mark's family still attempted to regain control, often testing the boundaries we had set. There were moments of tension, but I felt more equipped to handle them. I had learned to communicate my needs clearly, and Mark was becoming more supportive. As we navigated this new dynamic, I felt a growing sense of empowerment. I was reclaiming my voice, and with each passing day, I felt more confident in my place within the family. The journey was far from over, but I was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Setting boundaries is tough, but it's essential for maintaining healthy relationships. If you've had to make difficult choices for your own well-being, like this video, and share your experiences in the comments. Your stories can inspire others who are navigating similar challenges. Together, we can create a supportive community where we uplift one another through our journeys. As time passed, the impact of our family meeting became increasingly evident. The dynamics within Mark's family began to shift, albeit slowly. I noticed that his mother was making an effort to include me in conversations, asking for my opinions rather than dismissing them outright. It was a small change, but it felt monumental. Mark and I continued to communicate openly about our feelings and experiences. He became more attuned to my needs, and I felt a renewed sense of connection between us. We started to prioritize our relationship, carving out time for each other amidst the chaos of family obligations. Reflecting on the journey, I realized how far I had come. I had transformed from a passive participant in my own life to an empowered individual who could assert her needs. The lessons I learned about standing up for myself and setting boundaries were invaluable. I understood that it was okay to prioritize my well-being, even if it meant challenging the status quo. 6 months later, our marriage was stronger than it had been in years. Mark's family still tested boundaries occasionally, but he now recognized when they were manipulating him. We had established a healthier dynamic, one built on mutual respect and understanding. If this story of reclaiming your family life resonated with you, please subscribe to Reddit Family Sagas for more journeys through complicated relationships. Your experiences matter, and sharing them can help others find their courage. What boundaries have you had to set with family members? Join the conversation in the comments, and let's support each other as we navigate the complexities of family dynamics together.